All right, the top 10 albums of July is a couple of weeks late here. I definitely took a long break from YouTube videos, and I'm kind of catching up on a couple of ideas here as I work on some other projects. July was a tough month because there was not a lot that I cared about in terms of new releases. There was not a lot going on in terms of just inventive, interesting records, and so I had to dig around, look for some more experimental music, and I think I found a pretty good spread here, as you'll see. Some experimental, some traditional, and some just kind of classic, well-known stuff in here as well. And I think it's a good balance of interest in terms of dark and heavy real metal with riffs. Sevilla, Spain-based avant-garde drone doom metal band Pilar are kind of winding down in their career. They presented the first of their three final records with Delirio, an album which, as their name would suggest, is embracing the delirium of summon and commune with the ancients. And you're going to feel that with the incredible vocalizations and atmosphere of this record. It's like, I call it an organic psychedelic drone doom adventure in a way, but it's also this unique percussive experiment, as well as, again, the vocals are incredibly expressive, and it's something that's so experiential I couldn't really deny its quality, so I wanted to include it here. I think a lot of fans of avant-garde metal, and especially drone, will find this pretty interesting. Speaking of experimental psychedelic metal, we have Black Death Cult here with Cosmic Vertigo. I think this is their third full-length album. It's their latest either way. This Canadian quartet is, again, the Black Death Cult really does explain what they are a little bit in terms of a black death metal idea, fusing with the psychedelic rock expanse. And I would say there's kind of a ritualistic, experimental, eerie adventure to take here with Cosmic Vertigo. Even more provocative than their previous record, even more adventurous and other. I think this is a bold, impressive record, more of a trip than expected, and bolder in its step than I would have thought. At number 8, we have Dungeon Descent. This is a Polish black heavy metal band, a black and thrash metal band. Really, it's a traditional epic heavy metal band. Now at this point with this record, you definitely should get a little bit of that J.D. Kimball kind of Omen take on vocals and melody formation. That's definitely there in terms of classic United States power metal, or epic heavy metal, if you will. There's also really strong bass guitar performances on this record that really distinguish it overall. So a lot to like here from this Polish band. I'm really looking forward to whatever they do next. This was just absolutely infectious songwriting and some of the best traditional heavy metal I've heard all year. I do have to point out every chance I get that album art sucks, and they could definitely do better on the next release, whatever it is. En Skag av Nidstang is the ninth full-length album from Take, and it's number 7 on this list. This is a band I've been a fan of since at least the early 2000s or so, but definitely it was around 2005 where they kind of exploded in mind as an important and interesting band, and with a unique style of guitar playing. So all of this is featured on this newest record. It's kind of the second in these, I think maybe post-pandemic era of the band, and complete solitude, isolation, introversion into the self, which is expressed through the artist's signature in full here. You get a lot of that early on the first couple of tracks, and then the final two experiment a bit more in what he has to say. It really is a companion to the previous record, which changes a little bit of the pacing, some of the voicing, and the production values. So I think he wrote a bunch of songs in isolation, and he's realizing them over time, and I think it's working out really well for me as a fan, because we're getting just stark, raving Take, and I think that's what I want. At number 6, we have Inoculum Chaos from Heretic Cult Redeemer. This is an Athens, Greece-based avant-garde black metal quartet, and this is maybe where they've pushed furthest into their avant-garde dissonant side, while also really providing a surprisingly pristine and crystal clear production value, which highlights their incredible rhythm section as well as their bizarre dissonant songwriting and the way that's evolved over time. Every record from this band is a little bit different. This one is just bolder, it's brazen, and it's pitch black in the way that it presents its ideas. And so there's no real obfuscation here that might create mystery. They really hit you with it directly, and it's much more confrontational as a result. So I really appreciated that. At number 5, we have Texas-based artist Sallow Moth's latest album, Hydrophilus Brood, and this is a different one from the group. It is much more focused on a brutal form of progressive death metal, which definitely focuses on kind of an early 2000s brutality to it, but then evolves over the course of the record into something which is a little bit psychedelic. It's a little bit jazzy in the way that it produces its ideas, and then the abstract progressive technical death metal idea comes together as it completes its thought. So it is a complete thought, it is a complete transformation, and there's a virtuosic eclecticism to it, which is very well represented here versus the kind of the scatterbrained record that preceded it. So probably the highest quality release from the band to date, the most succinct and tightly written, and I think the addition of a human drummer, it was a huge boon to both the sound of the band as well as the songwriting, as it seems to have tightened up its ideas in general. So couldn't be more stoked on this one. At number 4, we have Putrescence from Coprolith. This is a Canadian band, and I don't say it very often, but I think this type of band is the one that I would source on my own, even if I wasn't getting promos or writing reviews, because it does embrace that cavernous Finnish death metal as well as early United States death metal sound with a strong perspective and a kind of crushing ideal here. They do kind of lean into the heavier incantation-esque side of things a little bit, but overall, a comparison to like Funebrarum would make a lot of sense, especially the earlier stuff. It really is the kind of spectacle that I'm always looking for in death metal, and I think they match that with pretty solid riffcraft overall. I don't think it's going to be the most memorable death metal record of the year, but in terms of sound design, aesthetics, and putting together an experience that is creeped out kind of old school death metal, it's well above average and should be celebrated. I think if I'd gotten Sepulchrum's Lacerator just like a week or two earlier, it probably would have been number 1 on this list. I just hadn't had that much time with it. By the time it was time to write a list, I was about halfway done with the review when I posted this on the list here, and you'll find in the review it was pretty glowing as an exploration of both South American and Floridian death metal style, as well as just having that early 90s technical finesse and really cramped riff forward songwriting. It's solid. It's not just new old school. It feels like a classic death metal record, kind of really putting out its damage all at once. Great record throughout. Probably one of the strongest old school style death metal records of the year. I wasn't sure what I was getting into when I pressed play on Cogwheel, this latest album from Alter Age, which I've set at number 2 here, because it felt like the previous record was kind of going through the motions. It was trying to do as much as possible to kind of lean into their aggressive side and kind of separating out the experimental side. And I think one of my thoughts was, why don't they just integrate the ideas of Sol Corrupto with that aggression and see what comes out of it? Well, it's kind of what they've done here. Is that this is kind of an industrial death metal record in some ways, but it's also a experimental, avant-garde, dissonant thing that is enormous in scale as well as just incredibly entertaining throughout. It hasn't gotten as much hype as I thought it would for how big and bold that it goes with its sound, changing the production values closer to something Portal-esque, especially mid late 2000s Portal and its kind of scraping sound makes for a record which is just all the more intense. Really, what's unique here is taking on the industrial aspects of it into that aggressive songwriting, and you'll know what I mean once you've sat with the record. It's a very long double LP, and it really deserves your time. At number one, there probably couldn't be any other number one in July. I am a huge fan of Ripper. It doesn't really matter if they're doing like the classic Death Meets Creator thing or if they're doing something more progressive. Towards Rebirth is kind of a compromise between the first record's style and its straightforwardness and the second record's exploration. They're not really pushing into the progressive death metal feature quite as much here at all, but they have embraced the riff forward death thrash side of their sound quite directly, and I think that makes for the kind of record I was just pretty much exactly looking for, and I was stoked on it. I was still very much hyped on it. Huge fan of the band. That was kind of a lock for number one. Thanks for checking out the top 10 of July. Go and check out all these records and let me know what you thought I missed or what I should check out that was released in July that is still worth listening to today.